Let me start by saying this is clearly not a standard set of results for the Qantas Group. It's been shaped by the extraordinary events that have made for the worst trading conditions in our 100-year history. To put it simply, we're an airline that can't really fly to many places, at least for now. The impact of this is clear. COVID-19 has punched a $4 billion hole in our revenue and a $1.2 billion hole in our underlying profit in what would have been otherwise a very, very strong year. I'll come to the statutory results in a moment, but the fact that the group still delivered an underlying profit before tax of $124 million despite COVID-19 says a lot about our resilience and why we have confidence in our future and in the long term. There are several important factors that supported this underlying result. The profit of almost $800 million we made in the first half, which was unwound in the second half and particularly in the fourth quarter because of COVID-19. The immediate action we took to reduce our costs as soon as travel demand collapsed. And several bright spots in our portfolio, Qantas Loyalty, Qantas Freight, and our charter services for the resource market, which continued to generate cash and continued to produce profits. I also want to acknowledge the federal government support. They were very quick to recognise the impact of travel restrictions on aviation and responded with industry-wide support plus JobKeeper, which has been a lifeline for all of our employees. Obviously, this result would have been very different without the border closures, but we do recognise they have been an important part of the public health response, and we greatly appreciate that the federal government's support, which recognises the impact those border closures have had on the group. And it's very clear that the industry will need this support when the closures remain in place, and we are continuing to talk to the government about continuation of that support. Now, turning to our statutory result, we flagged in June a $2.7 billion statutory loss for the year. A very large number, and this is worthwhile explaining. About half of this is non-cash. It's a paper change to the value of the aircraft. And most of the cash component is the upfront cost of a recovery plan. The two biggest drivers of this $2.7 billion loss are a $1.4 billion write-down of assets, including the A380 fleet, which reflects that these aircraft will be on the ground for at least the next 3 years. It also involves more than $600 million in redundancies and other items as part of a restructure of our business to set the business up for the future. And that's the sad reality that the pandemic means for airlines. It means far fewer employees, at least for a while. Some carriers are shrinking their workforce by 30, 40, and even 50%. Some airlines may not survive at all. For the Qantas Group, the job loss figures we've already announced are around 20% of our overall workforce and about 25% at the management level. But simply getting smaller isn't going to define success in a post-COVID world. Our new trading environment will involve an industry and competitors that are structurally different, an economy that's going to be recovering from probably a massive recession, a customer base with new expectations, and continued uncertainty on borders. We will have to operate differently in response, and that will mean more hard decisions. And that's not to say that everything will change. The advantages that the Qantas Group has built up over the years will be even more important to our future. We will have a unique position as the only dual-brand airline in the domestic market, with Qantas and Jetstar typically representing the bulk of our earnings in the domestic operations. We have a growing loyalty program which has diversified well beyond flying. And we have built a brand built over 100 years that people trust and is probably the most iconic Australian brand. And the national carrier will continue to serve regional Australia, invest in tourism, and employ thousands of highly skilled people. But just as we've done in the past, there will be some reinvention required to succeed in this different world. And Qantas has a history in the 100 years of its continuous operation of reinventing itself to adapt to those circumstances. And we announced our high-level plan for recovery at the end of June. Over 3 years, it will save us $15 billion. That is achieved by hard decisions like job losses and ongoing stand-downs of our people because of the less flying that we have, as well as fuel savings and lower maintenance costs from putting aircraft into hibernation. On a permanent basis, we plan to deliver around $1 billion in annual cost savings from financial year 23. A lot of that will come from reinvention, and we'll have more to say on this in the weeks and the months ahead. Now, we've already made some great progress against the core elements of that plan. All of our A380s are now in long-term storage in the United States. Our 747s have been retired 6 months ahead of schedule. We are sadly progressing with reductions of our workforce, and 4,000 people will leave the organisation by the end of September. And we have negotiated new terms with many suppliers, which we thank them for. It's been helpful to get us through this crisis. In the face of all this change, I want to speak directly to our people and our customers. To our people, we know this crisis is taking a toll. There's been a lot of upheaval and uncertainty. Just as we thought domestic flying was in recovery mode, we've been hit by another set of border closures. It shows how important it is to have a national framework for domestic borders so that there's clarity and consistency, and we bring certainty to the tourism industry and the travel industry. And I'll talk more about that later. Despite the recent setbacks, we know conditions will ultimately improve, and the hard decisions we've made so far about making sure that the Qantas Group is ready to take part in that recovery. For those leaving in the coming months and weeks ahead, I want to thank you sincerely for your service. It's been heartbreaking for all of us. I've seen people I've known for 20 years leave the company in the last couple of weeks. People that have served the company for over 40 years. People that for no fault of their position or the company's position have to leave this organisation. Great people. But what I've seen, which has given me hope, and what they've seen, is on the secondary employment opportunities, how well regarded Qantas and Jetstar people are. That's great for them, and it's terrible in the long run that we've lost some great people that have contributed to the company over the years. To our millions of customers, we are deeply grateful for your support and understanding. These are tough times for everyone. We know there are a lot of travel plans on hold. We know there are places that you want to go to. We know there are people that you want to see again. And we will be ready to take you as soon as borders reopen. With the safety focus that Qantas is famous for. We spend a lot of time talking about the challenges we face. For obvious reasons, we know that financial year 21, this financial year, will be another tough year. But there are opportunities on the horizon. Hard decisions in the current climate are largely about survival, but are also about eventually being able to grow again. Coming out of the crisis, we'll be the only Australian airline that can fly long haul. We want to expand on this when our balance sheet will allow, and picking up where we left off on Project Sunrise, our flights from the eastern states directly to Europe and directly to the east coast of the US. Domestically, there are a lot of opportunities for Qantas and Qantas Link and Jetstar, which will ultimately justify renewing our fleet, which will create promotions and job opportunities again. So our message is simply this. The Flying Kangaroo wings are clipped for now, but it's still got plenty of ambition, and we plan to deliver on it. We are and always will be the spirit of Australia. Thank you.